Let's talk about farmers for 2 seconds, right?
Okay.
Do you think in today's society, the way that they've, like farming 25, 30, 40, 50 years ago, like you could go buy a tractor, lease some land, buy some land, put in a crop, and you can make a living. Do you think that is today?
You can't without help.
No.
I mean,
it's impossible, isn't it?
Yeah. You somebody couldn't just come out of college or high school or something and just start their own farming operation.
Why? What? Let's break that down.
Oh, there's several factors. I mean, number one, typically they're not going to own any land, and so they have to find it. Well, to find land's tough because most
water's
farmers,
a huge commodity, and so it's going for a big price right now.
True, and if you're right out of high school, you're not going to qualify,
or even
for
out
a
of
loan.
college, right?
You're not going to qualify for a loan to purchase land. But so you have to rent land. Well, most of it's already rented. So how are you just going to walk in and say, "Hey, I want to rent some land"? You can't. So either somebody has to go out of business, retire, something like that, gives you the opportunity to come in. That's obstacle number one.
But let's assume you have that, right?
Okay. Number two is you have to have the equipment to farm it, and so
that's the problem.
I mean, it's super expensive to purchase that.
What do you think a round baler? And I'm talking about cotton here. What's a round baler cost?
$750,000.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That is absolutely a problem. So my point to bringing this up is let's look at what's fixing to happen. It's fixing to go to corporate farming. And I think that's going to be a huge problem with what we produce in America, because there's no longer fixing to be the next generation is not to be family farmers anymore.
Well, I don't know when that's going to happen. I mean, they've been talking about corporate farming for years. I mean, ever since I started in
well, I got to give you pushback on that one. Like, what you used to be able to buy seed for $35 a bag. Now you're buying seed for $600, $900 a bag?
Not that high, probably $400. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a big difference, but there's a lot of technology in that bag of seed too.
Right, and as soon as the federal government allowed patents inside of cottonseed or inside of food, that's a problem. Now, there's good and bad to that, and I want to make sure we identify both, right? So the fact that we changed the way that we could produce seed and actually patent seed now created yields to go up dramatically.
It has. And precision agriculture is the other thing that has, I guess,
Explain what that is.
Well, it's just they've got, with technology, they've got planters that put so many seed in the ground so far apart. I mean, yeah, it's a bag of seed's going to plant however many acres,
right,
just based on the way the technology of the planter works and the way it's going to plant. This bag's going to plant 2 acres or 3 acres or whatever it is, however you set your settings. And so back whenever I was a kid, my dad's a cotton farmer, and we had that cheap seed that we had. Well, if you spilt some of it, you didn't care. Now you're like, every little seed, you're going to make sure it goes in there. It's like, headgum. That's one of those things that you don't want to lose. But
I hope you got the right angle on that one.
You moved it right to your angle, right as the.
That's great.
But no, it would be very hard. So what you see second, third, and fourth generation farmers that have just come up through the business, and they've just kind of
that's what I love.
Inherited.
I just think inherited farming for small families is going to be harder and harder.
Yeah, well, possibly. I mean, but they've had to continue to grow. I mean, if you're buying equipment that we talked about, $750,000, well, you got to spread that out over a bunch of acres. You can't do that on what they used to be able to farm, 160 acres, and you can make a living growing it up and all that kind of stuff. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. You got to be 5,000-6,000 acres, just to justify it. And that may not even happen too. You may say,
yeah, but look at West Texas. Like, that's common here in West Texas.
Yeah.
Is that common in the Iowa states?
Well, no. No, theirs is typically not as large. I mean,
what's the difference? What's the dichotomy there?
Well, you're talking about different commodities,
but the price of the land, right?
Well, the land is higher there too.
Way higher. Yeah. Like you can get land here for $1,500, $2,000 an acre, and that's well irrigated.
The market's gone up more than that now. But
what is it today then?
Well, it just depends on where you're at.
2,500, 3,000?
Yeah, possibly. I mean,
but what's it in the Iowa states?
I couldn't quote that.
I did a case 4 years ago, and they were $30,000 an acre,
really?
$25,000 an acre. That's crazy. So they were living on $300-$400 acre farms, and they can make this work. And what the difference is there, I think that's really relevant. Here in West Texas, we get, 16, 18 inches of rain a year?
We hadn't in the last few years, but yeah, that's typical average.
Yeah, right? Up there, you're getting 30.
Yeah.
Right? So it's easier to grow things up there where you have to be more irrigated down here, but yet water's a problem here.
Yep.
And so I think there's a compounding factors that it costs more for seed. The input cost is way higher. Now we got Russia that's going to war here that produces 80% of our fertilizer. Where's that? And it's up 1,700% in the last 2 years. We had Rodney Mogan on, which is one of the largest landowners in the United States, that hedged that because he has 3 PhDs and 41 financial designations, and he knew how to hedge it, right? Most farmers don't. And so I think there's a problem there where now the input costs, right? And then you have people that are the tax benefits of your Schedule F in farming is dramatically good. And so high net worth people are gravitating towards buying farms just for tax benefits, which is not a problem. I don't fault business owners for doing that. I don't fault high net worth people for doing that. But it squeezes out the smaller guy. Does that make sense? So I think there needs to be a change there where you're not getting mega farms. I mean, I got a mega farm up north with dairies and things like that own 150,000 acres of farmland. Right. And the barrier to get into farming, I think there needs to be a fix there. And I don't know if it comes from the banking standpoint or if it comes from the government. I hate government coming into it.
Well, the government's always been involved in agriculture from some aspect. And, if you talk to some of the farmers, they would prefer to make a crop every year and not have any type of a subsidy or not. They don't like having that, I guess, if you want to call it a handout. But, again, they pay their fair share of taxes every year. They spend their money out in the economy that they live in, and they try to, give back to things. And they're having to constantly purchase equipment and replace things and do those kind of things. So they feel like they're doing their part, but a lot of times the markets, they don't control. And so they can't just go out there and say, well, you're going to have to give me $1 for my cotton. They're kind of a price taker a lot of times. Now they can go out there and do some marketing and whatnot, but a lot of them are busy doing other things that they don't focus on that. And a lot of them aren't educated in that. So there's certain type of pools and things like that help market that for them, and on an average, it turns out to be typically in their favor for most aspects. So, but man, I don't know. There's so many aspects to the farming sector, as with many sectors in business. And
there's variables and risk and everything you do, right?
And so
that's the sector that scares me the most for my kids' generation.
Well,